And now we've made the right-hand turn, slight right-hand turn over Texas Lake to head down the Sally Corridor. It's been just eerily quiet on the RTB leg here. All the other flight elements of RTB are out there. I can see on the data link that they're just out there holding and in pattern to land at Nellis. And I've just been playing with systems as I go here. And yeah, especially after coming out of just a chaotic situation like that, it's really nice flying. It's just fun to just sort of sit here and relax and play with aircraft systems. And I've been looking at the CDU, and well, I guess just to kill time here, I'll go to it's the CDU snap view. I'm holding insert and page down. Or actually, no, it's insert and 3 on my number pad just to get a little snap view here and just to keep me from having to, with TrackIR, keep looking. And if I go to the other page and then to press system, it brings me to the system menu, and I've just been at random playing with stuff. So if I hit EGI, that's embedded GPS INS, so I have a valid INS, valid GPS. MSN, I forget, I know that I've seen this in the manual, obviously, but yeah, I forget what MSN means for the V. Doesn't really matter for our purposes, I guess. And then blended, so I'm using both INS and GPS. So the INS is really what's doing the navigating, and the GPS is really just sort of feeding info into the INS to make sure that it's, completely 100% aligned. So let's see, I have 4 pages here, so let me go to page down. Okay, next page is just, let me see here, valid for a whole bunch of other parts of the system. I've got the OFP, so this is like the software version for the EGI, A10P4, status disabled. I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to. Let me go to the next page. See, MBIT, so built-in tests. So I've got all zeros right here, and if I had numbers right there, I would go to a big manual that would have all these things decoded for me. And let me go to page 4. Yeah, and it's just more bits, more built-in test displays. Yeah, very interesting. Let's go ahead and go back to the previous page. Let's see. Okay, GPS bit for a built-in test. Okay, so I have some status words, and these are just, I guess, the results of built-in tests. Like, yeah, there's an example of a status word, kind of like we were seeing, 000C, so the C would be significant, whatever that's referring to, and not all statuses would necessarily mean something bad is happening. That could just be the expected result there. And then battery voltage, and there's a battery that's installed in the, I'm not sure exactly what it is in the A-10, but at least in the F-117, the other aircraft I'm familiar with the GPS and INS system on, it would be a battery that would just be there to store GPS keys, so that it wouldn't dump the keys and have to go through the process of reloading the keys to decode the GPS data every single time. It would just stay loaded, and that's what the battery voltage is apparently right there. Let's see, system and HARS. Okay, this is one thing I was thinking about, and let me back out here and actually do some navigating. I'll just take it around to the left here so that I can take it in. And actually, this is the perfect time to, I guess, talk about that. And I have the HARS up right now. So this is the attitude of the aircraft according to the sort of a backup system. A lot of the controls for it are like right back here on the back of the panel. It's something that I at least never ever even think about. And let me just put it right down here, put my nose down and engage the autopilot and path hold just to hold me right here on the approach. But yeah, this is what the backup system is telling me my attitude is, and right now the attitude is being given off of the EGI. It's just the main navigation and aircraft attitude reference system. What's displayed up here on the HUD and what is currently displayed on the ADI, it's coming off the EGI, and this is what the HARS is saying. Now we get to this point, and the point of all this, why I thought it was neat when I found that I could go to there. If I go to the descent before landing checklist item, okay, I have altimeter checked, which I just did. EGI and HARS compare. So before, to EGI and HARS compare, I would depress HARS, and I guess I'll do it right now anyway. And now the attitude on the ADI, the attitude in the HUD, the heading, everything is running off of this backup system that we see displayed backed up right there. Now if I re-engage the EGI, now we're just back to the normal system, and I'll re-engage the EAC. So instead of actually switching right there, what I could do, and I think actually now that I think about it, the intent behind this step is just to come to this page and compare the roll, pitch, and heading to what you see here to what you actually see on the HUD and on the ADI in the primary mode. So that'll save me a little bit of trouble right there, and it's just, something kind of neat to look at on the aircraft. So I need to come around here to the right to sort of get lined up on apex. I'm a little bit behind here, but that's okay. I'm having fun looking at systems. Okay, windshield defog, anti-ice is required, anti-skid to anti-skid, Indus, night vision lights, landing lights is required. Okay, just make sure, yeah, they're still there. Okay, fuel quantity, I've been good all this time. And I'll roll it out right there. Okay, fuel quantity check, and I've been good all this time. HUD indicated airspeed, NVGs from moving slow, and then gear down once we're on the approach. So yeah, interesting. Go ahead and, well, I guess interesting depending on your point of view. If you're still watching at this point on one of my videos, then I'm sure it is interesting to you at least. Others have probably already left hours ago. Okay, so let's go ahead and get on to A-10C. Let's go for 125 on VHF FM. Let's go ahead and call A-10C, Nellis, and inbound, and then request landing. Okay, down through 278. Let me kick the speed brakes out. Okay, gotcha. I'm just going to roll it out right here. Now, runway 21 left is the one that's lit. That's the actual active runway. Yeah, since we're getting close to sunset, the one with the ILS is going to be active no matter what, but I'm still going to land on 21 right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go over to 21 left just for the heck of it. Okay, let me go ahead and request landing. Okay, and that's just a airspeed alert telling me that I need to get my gear down, and that's a good idea. Let's go gear down. Oh, that's right. It was the combination of speed brakes out and gear not down that's coming with that alert for me. Now when the gear comes down, that one goes away. I just need to manage my airspeed and bring it on in on the approach. Okay, so coming on in here, I've got all these other aircraft already parked out here on the EORs out here on the east end of the airfield. Now let me flare, set her down, and I'll just sort of let the nose come on down naturally, down through 90 knots, and roll it on out to the end, and then take it on around there to the left. There's our A-10 Low right there, and we'll shut it down. I guess one other little gee-whiz thing to watch out for on the CDU, and since I've got it repeated up here, it'll be more apparent. Now, when I came below 75 knots, it's sort of, you can see a little asterisk there flashing. It's sort of in a mode right now where it's sort of gathering data, and it's about to do a dump into the data transfer cartridge of all the data from the mission. So we're going to see it, we're actually going to get a master caution, and we'll be able to see download complete come up over here on the CDU. It should be, yeah, just as I clear the runway up here, and it just sort of starts that cycle once I get below, I think it's 75 knots. And, well, obviously that's going to be the end of the mission. If you're lower than that at any point, then you are in trouble. Okay, let me go ahead and engage my nose wheel steering. It's just going to be a left-hand turn. So there we go, download complete, and then it goes into a warm start status. And I think warm start's going to come up after this, and to clear that out, I just go to the fault acknowledge down here, and I'll wait for the warm start. Okay, now, let me see here, I'll go down to fault acknowledge, wherever that is. I usually don't even bother to do this. And let me just, so I can find this, I want to find this, so let me just stop right here. Okay, fault acknowledge. I know it's here somewhere. Yeah, FA. Okay, so hit FA, the warm start goes away, and then you're just sort of back into your normal mode right there. So, you know, where I guess that could be useful, you know, say for example we were flying 2 sorties, you know, we could do what's called a hot pit refueling, and actually this is the hot pit area out here. I forget exactly which spots it is, but for aircraft to come in and just with engines running take on fuel, there are certain spots set aside for it, and I think it's further on down. I don't think it's any of these, but that's, at least at Nellis, one of the locations where that would be done. So, you know, if I were in that case where I had another sortie to fly after this, I would just go through that. I would download all the data for the first sortie, and then once it sees me take off and fly the other mission, then once I get below 75 knots again, it's going to download the data for that second sortie. So I guess that's what happened there. And I've got to do, I probably am now that I'm thinking about it, I've got to do like an on-the-range video, tutorial video that just goes through the shutdown, because I don't think in my life I have ever just taken my time on a shutdown. I'm always, you know, like in this case, probably like 2 hours into the recording session, so I usually just blow through it. I'm going to take my time at one point on a shutdown and record that process. Now is definitely not the time to do it. I believe I was in spot 1, the first spot that we have coming up here on our left. So I'm going to come down a couple of spots and then just turn it around and come back in facing the way that we started. Just come on in here looking straight into the sun. Boy, that's cool. Okay, that's good enough right there. We'll go ahead and park it. And I'm just not even going to reference the checklist. I'm just going to go through the shutdowns. Let's go CDU and EGI off. Let's go Kiku JTRS, IFFCC off. We acknowledge that off and off on my displays. Alright, let me go ahead and get the canopy. And while that's opening up, I can go ahead and go pitot heat off. I should have got that earlier. That was part of the before clearing, or just after taxi stuff. Everything else right here is just fine. I'll disengage my CES. Everything else right here is just fine. Okay, at this point I can just go left engine off. Let that one spool down, wait for hydraulics to bleed off, and I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to go right engine off and then go inverter and battery, deploy the boarding ladder. I'll spend a couple more minutes up here. Well, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to go off and off on my radios. I didn't even turn VHF FM on because I didn't need it, and call that good. So I'm going to go to the debrief. It should be interesting. I'll be right back. Now we'll pick things up with the entire strike package marshaled and starting to push into the area. I'm going to be right here in the middle, and I've already dropped down to low level, and I'm just starting to pick my way through the terrain, staying down on the ground clutter as much as I can, just being aware of these MiG-29 threats, one group to the north, one group to the south. I have 4-3 in there to try to clean this situation up, so I'm fairly confident that I don't have much to worry about at this point. I do, however, pick up on this MiG-29 group. These are the ones that I eventually do get mixed up with. I'm coming up here on the farms, and at about this point I realize something is going on, so I start to jam on the air-to-air frequencies with my ECM pod. I drop some chaff, turn out of the area, and my thought here is just to let those F-15s handle it, which for the most part they did. They do get mixed up with that one MiG. The other one, however, does come sort of straight at me, single-minded in its pursuit here, and you know what I think happened here was that I just happened to be out in front of the entire strike package when it decided what target it was really going to go after, and just due to the way it was set up, that happened to be me. And this entire situation and setup is going to be changed in the version of the mission that's out there now. I don't think they're MiG-29s anymore, and the situation is a little bit different just based on feedback from what happened here. Now, I do duck down into the terrain again, trying to pull back to the east. Now, this MiG-29 is going to make it through the fighter screen, and at this point, I see him coming. Remarkably so, I was able to pick him up looking over the ridge. Now, I'm completely defensive at this point, and completely defenseless at this point. If he had tried to take some sort of a radar-guided missile shot, that just didn't happen to be the setup in this scenario. So I do really, the only thing that I can do, just turn, keep him in sight, put myself into the ideal position to evade if he does happen to take a shot, which he does right there. Now, this is actually a pretty good setup to be in with two A-10s or two aircraft of any type, because if the MiG comes for me, then 2 is right there to take a shot on that MiG's tail. If the MiG goes for 2, which ended up happening, I'm in the perfect position to take a shot. And this works really, really well if you're dealing with 4 A-10s in trail formation. That's the way that I run with it throughout some of the other missions. I've already flown the entire campaign at this point, in fact, and I use this same technique here to a great advantage later on. So luckily I do evade, and just a combination of turning into the missile and dropping flare. The R-73, it's an A-11, sort of like an A-9 heat-seeking missile. It goes after the flare instead of me. The MiG goes after 2, and I believe he does in fact take a shot, and since the MiG does turn to go after my wingman, that puts me into a perfect position to take my own AIM-9 shot. So I have a good rear aspect shot, perfect situation for an AIM-9. I couldn't have asked for this to go any better, and I take the shot, and that's a good kill on the MiG. That was fairly straightforward, very, very simple. I don't think this was meant to be very, very difficult from the air-to-air aspect, or from the ground aspect for that matter. They do get a little bit tougher in the later missions in the campaign. So yeah, 2 does sort of disappear on me right there, and I think that was just a combination of reacting to the air-to-air threat and reacting to some radio commands that I was giving him. I didn't show everything that happened here, but yeah, that was just the way it goes. It's one of those things where I wouldn't notice any of this stuff happening if it wasn't for going over it like I am in TACVIEW right now. Now at this point, I'm going after artillery. I know about the SA-10 threat out here, and you can see the threat bubble for it that I'm entering into right now. I'm just wanting to stay as low as I can, to use the terrain as much as I can to stay masked from this SA-10. So you see we have this little ridge. I'll be using it as we go. So let me back up to that HM65 shot. I come in here and identify targets, and I just take the first shot on the lead vehicle, the lead artillery piece. That's just one missile, and then pull out and just sort of watch what happens. Watching for missile trails, anything shooting back at me, and just assessing the situation from there. Now, I think in retrospect, what I should have done here was, instead of wasting my other missile, well, not wasting, it did take out a valid target, but instead of using my other missile on that artillery piece, I would have been better served just to go into utilizing the bombs and saving this missile just in case another air defense threat that I didn't see shows up. So it's sort of a wasted HM65D shot here, although it does take out a primary target. I can't complain about that. So I come off, and at this point I start to just identify targets for GV38 JDAM deliveries, and I'm going to get into this in an on-the-range video to show exactly why these fell long. It just comes down to the mark point being created at an incorrect place. A little trick that I knew worked in the real world, I didn't know it worked in DCS, was to laze the target as I create the mark point. That lazing of the target updates the range and creates the mark point right there where the target is, instead of just at ground level. So what you're going to see here is 2 releases on one pass, and they're going to both fall. And I'll come over here to the bombs real quick. So at the point where I was creating this mark point, I was looking through the tank exactly like you see right there. So the mark point is beyond the tank instead of right at the tank. So simple enough. That's all in the world that happened there. So both bombs fell right there, practically on target. I would be happy with those under any circumstances, but it wasn't exactly on target the way that I was hoping and the way that I was wanting. I also start to take some ground fire here, and I guess one of the comments that I rarely get around to responding to comments, but one of the comments was, I think the gist of it was, why didn't you use the gun? And your answer is right there. I'm not about to roll back in on that location, especially these APCs, these BMP3s up here, and expose myself to ground fire like that. So if I had rolled back in with a gun every single pass, I would have been dodging that sort of small arms fire. I made it out of there fine this time, but that's not a very good idea unless you just have no other resort. So that's why I switched over to GBU-12s at this point and started to take out more targets with bombs. So on this one, and I guess this is going to be sort of a, well, not really a comedy of errors like I was about to say, because I didn't really do anything wrong here. It's just that a loft delivery, like I was trying to do right here, doesn't work in the DCS A-10. I knew that. I don't know why I expected it to work here, but whenever you release a bomb as a loft delivery, it falls long. And I have a link in the video description to a tutorial that I did that explains exactly why that is and some ways to get around that. It just doesn't work. So that's the reason that first bomb fell long. And then if I come around to the second release, I did a tutorial on this already explaining why this one fell short. So I come up here, I pop up, it's a good plan. I just didn't have enough energy in this bomb for it to be able to make it all the way to the target. It noses over and doesn't have the energy to correct back down range or down track on that release, and that's why the second bomb fell short. So I mean, these were all 4 of these bomb releases in there practically on target, just not dead pinpoint accurate the way that you have to do it in DCS kinda to get the desired effect and to get credit, I guess, in game for taking out the target. So I'm happy with the way this went. By all means, it just could have been a little bit better. It does get a little bit better in subsequent missions, and I've got some good tutorials to take away from this. Now, at several points here, I was lit up by this SA-10, and I'll see if I can find a good spot. Yeah, like right here, I think I was seeing the SA-10 lock, but you can see that, yeah, I'm just using the terrain to, and I'll select myself again, I'm just using the terrain to mask myself from the SA-10. Otherwise, he would have, I think if I had popped up and stayed popped up maybe 10 seconds longer here on these deliveries, I would have had SA-10s in the air coming after me. But yeah, this worked out just fine. So at this point, I'm the last guy in. I see these F-15s, or I hear these F-15s. I think it was 4-4 calling that they were fencing out at this point, so I of course did the same. I have nothing else covering me in here if something else does pop up when it comes to air threats, which I perfectly well expected to happen. So from here it's just the fly out to Nellis and recover, which we just saw in real time. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to move on to mission 4 and get into the briefing for that coming up in the next video in this series. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.